And so now we are, with this Google Hangout on air, we are live via YouTube.
Ooh.
And it's going to record us. So we will have an archive, and I will share the link with you later.
Perfect.
I'm thinking that maybe we have some viewers successful earlier today.
Okay, let me see. It looks like I'm getting a call from a teacher.
Okay.
Next one. Wonder what that's about. What's going on, Lori?
Yeah. Well, we are live.
All right. Hello.
It's a little tricky.
Yes. I'm wondering if my 1:30 thinks that it's at 1.
Oh, so you have somebody at 1:30? Well, they can join in with us too. That's fine.
Let me just see what she's. Okay, where's Lori? Hi, Lori.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking.
Okay. You're doing a Google Hangout on air that they everyone has already assembled.
Okay, so I see that we have 8 viewers. So it looks like we have people joining us, because I know that some of our schools were having issues getting on the Google Hangout part, but they were able to look to watch via YouTube.
Okay.
So we'll just go ahead and we'll start.
Okay.
Talking now. And my name is Mrs. Abercrombie. I'm the lead media coordinator for Davidson County Schools. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a very, very special guest for World Read Aloud Day. I would like to introduce Jesse Klaussmeier. Klaussmeier. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jesse. What I want you to do is, we only have maybe 10, 15 minutes before we go out to the buses. But what I'd like for you to do is talk to us a little bit about your book, a little bit about the writing process, and then, of course, if you could read your book to us, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to put you on the main screen.
Alrighty.
There you go.
All right. Hi, everybody. So my name is Jesse Klaussmeier, and I am from Madison, Wisconsin. And I wrote this book, Open This Little Book, and it was illustrated by Susie Lee, who is an incredible illustrator out of South Korea. She created the books Wave and Shadow, which you might be familiar with. Those are wordless picture books. And I wrote the first version of Open This Little Book when I was 5 years old. And what I wanted was a book that never ended, because I was not a fan of bedtime. When my parents would read to me at bedtime, they would say, okay, Jesse, pick one more book. That's it. One more. And what I would do is I would take the biggest picture book that I could find, and then I would cram as many little golden books or other little picture books as I could inside of it, and then I would hand it to them and I'd say, here you go. And and then they would open the book, and of course smaller books would be inside of it, and I would say, oh no, we better read them all. And so that was what I really wanted to do when I wrote the first version of this book, was make a book that never ended, so I would never have to go to sleep. So that I kept that idea with me, and when I rewrote that idea into Open This Little Book, you'll see that the end of this story has a little bit of that that sneakiness to it at the end of the story, where maybe if you were to choose this book as the last book that you were to read when you went to bed, maybe it might not end up being the last book of the evening. And it also keeps the idea of books inside of books inside of books. So with that said, should we go ahead and read it?
I think that would be great.
Okay, so open this little book by Jesse Klaussmeier, illustrated by Susie Lee. And I dedicated this book to my parents and my grandparents, and also to LeVar Burton, who
I love LeVar Burton.
I know. So for those of you who don't know, LeVar Burton created the show Reading Rainbow, which was on when I was a child and was a television show dedicated to books and the love of reading. And now he's got a new app for Reading Rainbow that is going to be used hopefully across the country in classrooms and libraries. So hopefully if you don't know who he is yet, you will soon. So open this little book. Open this little red book and read about Ladybug, who opens a little green book and reads about Frog, who opens a little orange book and reads about Rabbit, who opens a little yellow book and reads about Bear, who opens a little blue book and reads about Giant, who, oh no, Giant can't open her little book because her hands are way too big. So Giant's friends open her little rainbow book and read her a story about a ladybug, who reads a story about a frog, who reads a story about a rabbit, who reads a story about a bear, who reads a story about a giant, whose friends read her a story about a ladybug, a frog, a rabbit, a bear, and a giant. And then Giant's friends close her little rainbow book. Bear closes her little blue book. Rabbit closes his little yellow book. Frog closes his little orange book. Ladybug closes her little green book. You close this little red book and open another.
Oh, that was awesome. I just love it. I love how creative the pages get smaller and then the pages get bigger. I've never seen anything like it.
Thank you. Thank you. It's I hadn't either. And it's one of those ideas that I hadn't seen, and it inspired me format-wise, because I love books that are different. Like The Very Hungry Caterpillar was a very different book when I first saw it when I was a child, with those holes in the books. And when I saw it, I thought, this book is broken. And I didn't I was so little, and I thought, this is wrong. and I just, it couldn't make sense of having holes in books. And but I had never seen a book like this before, and I do like how it shows the rainbow. There's another book out called There Are Three Books Inside This Book by Barney Salzberg, who did Beautiful Oops, who is also an incredible book creator. He's just masterful, and he also had this idea of books inside of books, I think at the same time that I did, and that came out recently. And I think it just speaks to the idea of there are so many ideas out there, And although I didn't know that he was thinking of this idea and he didn't know that I was thinking of this idea, they both came out relatively close to one another. And so there are so many amazing ideas that are just sort of bouncing around in the world all the time. And I think that what that speaks to is that we can all create really amazing things, especially when we don't limit ourselves. Rules are important, absolutely, but once we know the rules, we can also sort of bend them and see how we can use them to expand what's possible and look at things in new ways.
Well, I think your book is absolutely beautiful, and I love the way the pages fold out. It looks like art. It really, really does. And did you win any awards for this book?
Yeah, Susie and I won the Hornbook honor, the Boston Globe Hornbook honor for excellence in children's literature, and that was in 2013. That was really amazing because this is my first book, and Susie is an award-winning author illustrator, and so for me to get that huge honor for my first book out of the gate was incredibly humbling and so special for me. Yeah, so that was pretty amazing for me. So yeah.
So are you going to write another book?
Yes, I have a number of other books that I'm working on right now and that I will be submitting to my editor, and so hopefully there will be a bunch more coming out in the next few years. Picture books take a long time to work on because it's not just words, it's pictures. And in addition to the illustrator who draws the pictures, there's also a book designer. And especially in a book like this, where design is so important because we have so many different sized pages and everything has to fit together. So while our book designer, her name is Sarah Gillingham, and she played such an important role in the creation of our book also, to make sure that all the pieces fit together in the best way possible. So there are so many different hands in the pot, in the making of a book, that have to work together. And so it takes a while. It can take a while for a book to come together with the author, the illustrator, the designer, the editor, and art director, and then actually physically making the book.
So how long did it take from start to finish?
Well, if you think about it, when I first wrote the book, I was 5 years old.
Uh-huh.
So I first wrote the book when I was 5 years old, and it came out in 2013. So that was 30. That took like 20 some years to do.
Wow.
But my book got acquired in 2009, and it came out in 2013. So it took about 4 years for we had an author earlier today, and hers was about 4 years as well. Yeah.
Her very first book.
Right. And it depends too, because my part as the author, I mean, I send in my manuscript and the words, and then I work with my editor to get the words just right. And then normally they will look for an illustrator to do the pictures. So Susie, who is such an incredible illustrator, we needed to wait for her to finish projects that she already had going on. So I would have waited forever for her because I'm just such a super, super fan of hers. But because our book is so special and has such a unique format, we all really worked together. It was such a team effort between Susie and myself and the editor and the designer that we all sort of played with each other in talking about the text and the art. And so it was a real team effort. And I think the way that you can tell how well we work together is the fact that it looks like maybe one person did the whole book.
The whole thing.
Yeah. You can't really tell how many.
That's what my favorite kind of books are picture books. And I think because they're like art, they really are. There's so much thought that goes into them, and early childhood is such a great time to get connected to reading. Yes. And most kids do that through picture books. And I'm no longer in an elementary school, but that's something I really, really miss. And I even have a few picture books on my shelf because even though I'm not in elementary school, going to the library, and I enjoy going to bookstores and looking at what's new out there. Well, I have one last question for you. And I want to know what your IT book was. What was the book have you heard that before, your IT book?
Yeah.
Okay. My IT book is Shel Silverstein's Where the Sidewalk Ends. Mm-hmm. That was the book that did it for me. That was the book that made me a reader. So we want to know, what was the book that made you a reader?
Oh boy. It's so hard. There are so many. I know that there's a book there's a book called The Monster at the End of This Book, starring Furry Old Grover. Oh. And it is a book, it's a Sesame Street book, and in it there's Grover as the main character. And you open the book and Grover says, "Stop, do not turn this page. There is a monster at the end of this book."
I think I remember this book.
It was very difficult for me as a child because I was such a rule follower that when I would read that with my dad, I would say, "Okay, let's shut the book and put it down." So it took every night we would turn one more page. Oh, wow. and then put it down. So it took it took many nights for us to get to the end of the book to where the monster was. Mm-hmm. And for me, that just built the suspense. And by the time we finally got to the end of the book, which I'm not going to reveal the ending if you haven't read it yet, but you really, really should. It's wonderful. But that really hooked me because every night I was excited to turn one more page, but at the same time I was also a little nervous. So yeah, that was one that was really, really important to me.
Well, it looks like we're getting close to bus time.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us here on World Read Aloud Day. You've been Skyping a lot today?
I have. I've been Skyping all over the country and Mexico, so it's been a great, great busy day.
Well, that's exciting. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day, and I'll be sure to share the link with you later.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.